Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell in just a moment. So if you look at the betting odds for the regular season wins for Ohio State, it's 10.5, the over-under. 10.5. So, are they going to go 11-1 or 12-0, or are they going to go 10-2 or worse? That's the question. It's a tough schedule. I see why it's a lot of times Ohio State recently it's been 11.5 has been the over-under for regular season wins. Like, are they going to go undefeated or are they going to lose one game? So a little more wiggle room this year, but we'll see. I mean, it's a tough schedule. I'm not going to give my answer yet. We'll get Bax's answer as well, but good to see all you guys. And we're going to take your questions later as well. Starting a little bit earlier than we usually do. We usually start about around 9. Starting a little earlier. Bax has to get to work. Before we get to matters of Ohio State business, I want you guys know about, look at this thing. Look at Ridge Wallet. It's my wallet. Yeah, it's a wallet. Holds up to 12 cards. It's sleek. It has a money strap back here. You can see how much money I have in here right now. I just got off vacation, so I'm a little strapped for cash, if you will. But you have your money strap back here. You can hold up to 12 cards. It's perfect. It's a great conversation piece, too. People are going to be like, you pull this out at dinner or wherever you're at a bar with your friends, wherever you're at, family gathering, people are going to be like, what in the heck is that? And you're going to be like, that's my wallet. And they're going to be like, no way. And you're going to tell, yes way. And they're going to be like, where can I get that? And you're going to tell them ridge.com and you can get them 10% off because you can spread the word here. So again, we've got a great deal for you guys. I'll tell you about that in a bit. Ridge wallets are ultra slim, sleek, surprisingly spacious. Like I said, it holds up to 12 cards. Throw your driver's license in there and 11 cards on top of that. You really don't need 12 cards, though. Throw your driver's license in there. Throw a credit card or two. Make sure you have your insurance card with you in there if it's not already in your car. You don't even really need 12 cards, but if you want to take 12 cards with you, you can. It has over 50 colors and styles. I have the carbon fiber, which I really like. They even have your favorite NFL teams that you can get. So that's really cool. Now, here's the deal you guys can get. Right now, you can get 10% off your order at ridge.com/bucknuts. Head to ridge.com/bucknuts. And when you check out, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Get yourself some Ridge wallets, guys. And ladies, too. All right, let's get into it. Do we have Bax yet? Bax is jumping on in a minute. So, I find it interesting. We're going to hear from Bax in just a second. I find it interesting that the over-under is 10.5. It makes a lot of sense, though. A lot of sense to me because very tough schedule. Obviously, we know about the first game and the last game, right? We know Texas at home, at the Cheaters up north to close the regular season. And you can't really say it's like a 3-game regular season because, including Penn State. The last time Ohio State and Penn State are going to play for a couple years, which is weird. They've played every year since 1993, since Penn State's joined the Big Ten. And they're not going to play next year or the year after that. Ohio State only has one protective rival now, that being the team in Ann Arbor. So Penn State, obviously, that's another tricky game there. And then at Illinois. Illinois is flying under the radar a little bit. Talk about over-under regular season wins. You want to bet on Illinois? 7.5 is their over-under. Illinois. I love that bet. I absolutely love that bet because they were 10-3 last year. I think they're going to be better this year. You could go 8-4 and win that bet. And I think they're going to be 9-3 or better. So that's another tough game for Ohio State. If they go at Illinois, Wisconsin, I don't think is going to be good. And Luke's not doing a great job there by any means, entering his 3rd year, but still traveling to Wisconsin. We all know that won't be easy. Washington has a good young quarterback. They were better than I thought in year 1 under Jed Fish. So they're probably going to be better this year. Again, Washington's not going to challenge for the Big Ten title or anything, but that's another game. Going all the way to Seattle could be tricky. So I see why it's 10.5. Before I give you my bet, I'm going to bring in my friend Matt Baxendell. Bax, good to see you on a Wednesday, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Biddle. How are we doing on this fine Wednesday?
Good, man. It's been a while. I was
buddy.
With Mr. Dan Rubin. It's been a while since we've had you on the Wednesday show, my version of the Wednesday show. So great to see you. All right, let's just cut to the chase. Ohio State's over-under for regular season wins is 10.5. It's a tough schedule. Manageable, but tough. If you had to bet, you taking the over or under on 10.5 wins for the regular season?
If I had to bet, I'd take the over. This is Ohio State. I mean, how often do they not win 10 or 11 games in the regular season? I mean, you're essentially fulcruming this on 4 games. There's essentially 4. to me that are your keys, right? You've got the Texas game at the start of the year. That's a big one. You're at an Illinois team that looks like it may be the best Illinois team they've had in a long time. You're at Michigan, and you're home against Penn State. Those are the four. And you're assuming that you think you're going to win. If you go in this as a regular season bet, you have to win 3 of those 4 to be able to say that you've won your bet there. Because the rest of them are ones you have to feel pretty good about Ohio State winning. Those are, I don't want to say check the box and move on kind of games, right? Let's be honest. Anytime we're at Purdue, it's scary. That's the kind of game they'll put at 9 p.m. just to piss us off. Luke Fickell really needs to have a win in the worst way possible. It's at Camp Randall. It's another one that could be at night. Even though Wisconsin's struggling under Fick, it's not been the success I think he was hoping for when he went there. There's some tougher games on this list here, too. Even going out the west coast of Washington. I mean, we saw how badly teams struggled going west to east and east to west last year. That was a noticeable non-anomalous statistical example of how different it is. Teams that go west or came east were in almost every situation more likely to lose than they are staying in their own time zone, home or away. So that's something to factor in too. But I think it's those 4 games that I talked about earlier. Those are your fulcrum games. And right now, I think Ohio State is going to handle business in the biggest game of the year, which is the last one. I think right now the Texas game is an interesting one, but it's at the Horseshoe. So then you're saying essentially, do you win 1 or 2 against Illinois and Michigan? And I think the answer is yes. Or not Illinois, Michigan, Illinois and Penn State. This schedule to me has 11-1 written all over it. It's a little tougher than before, but it's still a really talented team. So I would take the over. It's just one of those things with Ohio State, Dave. It's hard to pick against them just based on all the history of this team.
Yeah, I break it down. Like, I don't think they're going to go 12-0. And I don't think they're going to go 9-3 or worse. So it's like, am I picking 10-2? Or am I picking 11-1? I'm picking 11-1. I do think they're going to drop a game. It's a tough schedule. I think they're going to drop 1 game. It's not going to be the last game of the regular season. They're going to take care of business. We're going to be proud of our young people in the community, in the classroom, and most especially in the football field in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the great Jim Tressel. By the way, I just learned something new this week. I always thought that he scripted. I had no problem with him scripting the 310-day speech. He did that off the cuff. Mm-hmm. He didn't know that they were going to give him the microphone. They said they were just going to introduce him. He thought he was just going to wave to the crowd, and that was it. They handed him the microphone. He came up with the 310-day speech on the fly, which I found out this week. Tressel's a legend. All right, I'm going over. I think they're going to go 11-1. So I'm going over. I think they're going to hit the over. And 11-1 would be an absolute – actually, 10-2 would be a lock for the playoffs. There's no doubt about that. 11-1, by looking at maybe a bye. I guess it would depend if they go on to win the Big Ten championship, obviously. But, yeah, man. All right, so we're gonna take the over on that. We got a lot of people checking in. Yeah, people are saying 11. A lot of 11-1s in here. Some people are saying, maybe 2. There's no way they're going to lose 3. Yeah, I think you guys are in congruence with what Bax and I are saying. All right, I want to get your thoughts on this, Bax. So I've been doing some stories this week from Ross Bjork's press conference about a week and a half ago because I was off last week. He seems to be convinced this NIL Go clearinghouse would stand up in a court of law because it was a federal judge who signed off on the settlement. I tend to think as soon as an athlete's NIL deal is rejected by this clearinghouse, he takes it to court. I think it's a shoo and he's going to win. Maybe I'm wrong. What are your thoughts on all that?
This is a little more interesting here because it's not like it's being rejected by some panel of schmucks. It's Deloitte. Like I said this last week with Dan, Deloitte is one of the biggest companies in the world. They employ 500,000 people. And A, like you said, it's signed off on by a federal judge. B, it's being vetted for essentially fraud by Deloitte. So those are 2 pretty big bulwarks against this being, overturned by. Now let me give this a bit of a caveat here. You never know what one random judge is going to do in this country. That's been a big topic of conversation for most of this year. But I will say that this is not the same stuff we've seen from the last 10 years of NCAA constantly losing. The reality is that we had a system that for years everybody knew was probably illegal and unconstitutional. And eventually somebody finally got the NCAA nailed on it. At the end of the day, it was the National Communist Athletic Association. If you go back and ask the boss, I mean, let's be real here. You couldn't sell your own personal items. That's what got Jim Tressel, the great Jim Tressel, in trouble for all this BS. This is how good of a quality human the NCAA rules messed up. You know, this is the guy who was the head of a university. This is a guy that is now the lieutenant governor of the state of Ohio, but the NCAA found him guilty of wrongdoing because people sold their own personal possessions. So the old NCAA rules were blatantly rigged against the student athletes. We've evolved to a certain point now where they've come to the point that it seems that this is an agreement that has been made. Now, the only way I think you're going to see sort of a bulletproof way of this is that you're going to have players that eventually would have to collectively bargain their way in. But then there's no collective bargaining that you're going to have with 140 schools of football players that rotate a fifth of the kids out every year, maybe more. It's hard to do. So, you know, and the flip side of this too, like you just said, whoever put that up on the screen was dead on, and they actually stole the thunder of the last point I was going to take. So credit whoever that is. The schools all still have to say that they're going to do this. They don't have to do this at the end of the day.
But even if they do that, the kids themselves could just go rogue. Tennessee's already saying basically we're going to use our state legislature to fight this, and all it's going to take is one kid to fight it, and I think that kid will win. I could be wrong.
I don't think it will. I don't think they'll win. I really don't. I think it's a situation where A, it's signed off on a federal judge. B, it's part of a gigantic billion-ish dollar settlement agreement. Therefore, they're abiding the rules of the settlement agreement that they've put in place. And C, at the end of the day, this is something that is now being covered by one of the most respected accounting firms on the planet. It's not like it's you and me who are in the clearinghouse. We're like, Tennessee wants to have Bubba's Barbecue sponsor that feller, and they ain't gonna let him. It's not how this is going. You know, it's real. At the end of the day, this is the most together the NCAA has had its shit. So you never know what a district judge is going to do, and any of these circuit judges in the United States these days. But I find it very unlikely that this is the sort of thing that just keeps blowing the NCAA up further. I think we've reached the end of the chain of lawsuits that change everything.
I hope I'm wrong on this. I hope, because I want guardrail. I want these kids to be able to make money, but I do want some guardrails so it's not the Wild West. We've been calling it the Wild West for 5 years now. Seems like all the powerful people, they all want some type of guardrails. They know the young men deserve to get paid, but we want some guardrails. I just think, man, because the Supreme Court, while that was not about NIL directly, that's what opened the floodgates 4 years ago. The Supreme Court ruled that you can't prevent, and the NCAA cannot prevent an athlete from profiting off their name, image, and likeness. They can't restrict them from doing that. And I don't know how that would hold up. I know this federal judge signed off on the settlement, but I would think the Supreme Court, that precedent would reign supreme, no pun intended.
But Dave, you haven't been a court legal observer like I have. There is something called a reasonable burden placed upon an individual, and providing a structure to be able to put legitimate things in there is not an unreasonable burden upon these players. At the end of the day, I think we really need to end up leaning into the fact that if you know how the court works, these kids are going to sue and go, wah. You're not letting me profit on my name. And they're going to go, well, there's a whole structure in place for you to profit off your name reasonably. This is not an unreasonable burden. That's what you're going to look at from a court perspective.
Good. I hope you're right. Again, though, all it's going to take is one. Wouldn't even have to be rogue, in my opinion. One judge, and you can have some states that are going to have their own laws. This is why Ross Bjork's saying he feels like he's confident. He's talking like he's confident that this would hold up. But then in the next breath, he says, but we still need Congress. So even though they had this settlement, they still are saying they need Congress to make sure this is ironclad, because they know different states are going to do what they want to do. Tennessee being the prime example. I mean, they've already threatened that they're going to do that.
Oh, it won't just be Tennessee. It'll be folks like Alabama and all these other places. The SEC folks are like, trying to find any edge they can get right now. They miss the days of the bag man with all these northern schools winning natties.
Right. No doubt. So hopefully hopefully you're right, and you make a great point. I see that's the same thing Ross Bjork was saying. Other people in the chat. Good. I hope that happens because we need some type of guardrails. Now the next thing and Ross was asked about this. I did a piece on this as well. Do you think we're headed for a situation where these athletes are considered employees or maybe even independent contractors? Is that the next step that we're headed toward? They're going to be employees or ICs?
I think they're trying to avoid that relationship right now. And I think the students would make a huge mistake if they did not leave it the way it is. And here's why I say that. All of these guys that come to these schools now are going on scholarship. There's unlimited scholarship numbers. Their room, their board, their food, all this other stuff is paid for, right? Then you would be putting a financial number on that. And let's be honest here. They've already got the freedom to make their 100 athletes on the football team, and there's $20 million that's going towards revenue sharing every year. That's $200,000 a kid. You know what I mean? Like let's be honest here. That's a lot of money, right? And then if you start monetizing what these scholarships are worth to all these student athletes, what it's going to do is, let's say you have Ohio State and Northwestern who have to have their student athletes only have the same amount of compensation per year, right? Well, tuition at Northwestern is $70,000 a year, right? Ohio State is 25 or 30. So essentially Northwestern can only have, if it's the same pool of players, Northwestern can only have one student athlete for every 3 Ohio State gets. And what that does is that starts limiting opportunity and space if there's a financial cap and you start counting total compensation against them in this spot. Right now, they're getting revenue sharing dollars, which makes sense. And they're getting the ability to use their name, image, and likeness. And they're getting all their living and schooling paid for. If you start monetizing that living expenses and schooling, you're going to drastically change the playing field because every school costs differently. So I certainly hope they're not dumb enough to go down that route because that's the logical end game there in my mind. I think you're going to see these guys kept as students. And I think the reason they're trying to put guardrails on here and hopefully have it followed is to prevent this further degradation away from the classical student athlete into NFL light. I don't think anyone wants that, right? I don't want us to be the NFL affiliate from Ohio known as the Buckeyes. I want us to be Ohio State. And I think most people see it that way. There's a certain point you have to keep some of the basics of the relationship.
That's the good news is everybody who's a power broker in this wants the same thing, pretty much everybody. And when powerful people all want the same thing, usually things happen. So one more thing before we move, I'm going to ask you about Matt Patricia's impact. I want to get into some of that stuff too with the defense. But what do you think about Wisconsin suing Miami over tampering?
I love it. I didn't think they'd actually do it, but I love it. I absolutely love it. And hey, it fits Dave, it's a good distraction for Luke to cover for the way the football field has not gone for them. Yeah. But let's face it, it's a giant breach of contract that they're talking about here. At the end of the day, these kids have to understand if you sign a piece of paper that says you get money for something, then you have to abide by the terms or you got to give the money back. And by the way, most contracts have a breach of contract penalty in it. It's like a buyout. You want to buy out Jimbo Fisher, you got to pay him a crap load of money. So the Wisconsin NIL collective had to deal with the kid. Then he said, nah, I'm leaving and going to Miami. Well, in that contract, it specifically said, hey, you can't do that. So to me, I think it's Wisconsin trying to get some guardrails on some of these crazy Southern schools that are trying to do whatever they can. But I also think that this is another logical part of this. Like if let's say I'm going to try to think of it. Let's say the Columbus Blue Jackets had a player leave from their team to go to play hockey in Russia. Well, the Blue Jackets could easily sue the Russian team if the guy had an active contract, right? There was a span where they didn't have transfer rules and through the International Hockey Federation. And so they would literally sue each other. This happens when Russians come here. There's a reason. There's a guy on the Penguins whose name's Evgeny Malkin. He had to hide in a hotel for a week in Finland in 2007 to get over here because he had a contract with his Russian team. And he snuck away when they were in Helsinki for a trip. And then they got him into LA after they got a visa done. It was essentially like a Cold War escape from Russia thing.
It's like Cuban baseball players. It's like Cuban baseball players having to hide out, leaving Cuba. There's been stories of guys getting on a boat and going 90 miles from Havana to Miami. It's crazy. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing. And at the end of the day, when he got here, his Russian team sued for 2 years because they saw it as a breach of contract, and it had to go through international arbitration in court. Now he was here and it was gone, right? But it helped set the affiliate change so that if you have that both sides have to respect each other's contract was the end conclusion here in an international court. So that's likely where this is going to go is that you can't tamper your way out of somebody else's NIL. And it's already been touched on about how you have the buyout part of the player compensation and the caps. So yeah, I think this is great because it's putting more guardrails on, and I'm so happy Wisconsin sued them. Well, it's so great because Miami has been probably the worst of the let's just throw money at that guy 2 weeks before we sign him. And how many guys have they cost Ohio State with this profligate spending on nothingness? So I'm glad somebody finally got out there and said, hey, I'm going to stand up for my school too.
This NIL clearinghouse, they should say Carson Beck getting $4 million. That should be rejected. You cannot be an above average quarterback making $4 million. Actually, you can.
Rejected like a Cavander twin rejected him.
Your market value is what anybody's willing to pay you. But that's the thing. It's but that's going back to my point. If they tried to reject that and Carson Beck took them to court, I bet he'd win, but maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. All right, I'll get you out of here in this. I know you got to get to work. Matt Patricia's impact. It's easy to sit here in June and say, man, I think this was a home run hire. I'm sitting here in June and I'm saying I think it was a home run hire. Now, the proof's going to be in the pudding. I also like that, he's more of a three. He'll mix it up. He'll do 4-3. He'll do a little bit of everything. But, I think we're going to see a lot more odd fronts this year because they like their DNs. They like their outside linebackers. They like their linebackers overall with Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Peyton Pierce. I think we're going to see more three-backer sets. And I think we're going to see more odd fronts because they like their defensive ends. They like their depth there. Bringing the two guys they got from the portal with Logan George and Bo Atkinson, moving C.J. Hicks down there, adding him with Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry. You can rush Sonny Styles off the edge. Again, C.J. Hicks is another one you can rush. Arvell Reese, you can move him around. He can play middle. He can play on the outside. Peyton Pierce is just going to be in the middle. They don't have good depth at D tackle, though I like their starters. So I think Matt Patricia is going to move things around in that front seven. I'm really curious to see how he does. I think he's going to do great backs, but we'll find out in about a couple months from now.
Yeah, and kind of to follow what you said there, I think you're going to see a return of the Rushman package at times where you've got 4 DNs on the field and obvious passing downs. I could see that being a real thing Ohio State does this year. But I've been impressed with Patricia's willingness to be hands-on in recruiting, coming from the NFL the way that he did, having coordinators in the past that, they're more of the I am here, come see me kind of coordinators, right? I think I've been impressed that he's been as hands-on as he has been so far in the recruiting side. I think that's a big deal. But I also think that we can't really tell because we had no idea about Jim Knowles' tendencies to get over-aggressive or whatever whenever he came to Ohio State until we saw him call plays too. So I am optimistic right now that this is about as good a hit as we could have had at D coordinator. I think everything I've seen so far has been great. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that he's not running, a zero coverage and a 9-man blitz on a 3rd and 9 against Michigan and leaving a guy on an island for a out route to turn into a 60-yard touchdown. I mean, some basic stuff there that, those are the criticisms that Jim Knowles had to kind of grow through. So, I feel very good about where we're at with Patricia. I think, again, the recruiting side to me has been 1,000% a home run. And I think it may be easier just not to have the coordinator and the defensive line coach butting heads frequently in the background. That will be helpful too if that happens. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good hire, and we're going to see exactly how good of a hire it is when we see the defense on the field this fall. But I'm optimistic, Dave. How's that? Cautiously, maybe almost uncautiously optimistic.
That's where I'm at. I'm uncautiously optimistic. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I think Patricia was a grand slam home run of a hire. I did not expect him to be. I thought he'd be a good defensive coordinator. We'll see. I didn't think he'd be pounding the pavement in recruiting like you were alluding to, as well as he is. He seems to enjoy recruiting. He's got it.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like an act. He's very personable. He's, I don't know if he's changed his personality or if he just got like an unfair rap, because he's very friendly. It doesn't come across fake at all. And he's doing a good job on the recruiting trail for sure. And he's a willing recruiter.
Think about how much better OSU is a recruiting staff right now with the new O-line coach and the new defensive coordinator. Like, both those coaches that moved on, obviously were big parts of winning a national championship, and were great coaches. They did a great job with the players in front of them. But I'm telling you right now, the recruiting differential at D coordinator and O-line is so stark right now.
Yes.
It's night and day. And it's at a place like Ohio State where you already recruit pretty well no matter what you do. I mean, Jim Bowman brought in first rounders on the O-line, and he didn't ever want to recruit. So it's Ohio State that self-recruits in its own way. But, man, it's just such an upgrade at those two spots from a recruiting perspective. So if the commensurate coaching is there, then, yeah, wow, that's scary, but they got better.
All right, we're going to close up shop here. Bax has to get to work. Great stuff, Bax. Appreciate it, my man.
Happy to be on, Mr. Biddle, and go Bucks.
Go Bucks. Still basking. I tell you what, and you can read Bax's excellent column every Sunday. It is The Bucket. Thanks to Bax. All right, you get to work, pay some bills, buddy.
As always, good to see you, sir.
Yeah, good to see you. It's my man, Matt Baxendell, the people's champ. All right, so we're going to close up shop a little earlier than usual, like I said, which is funny. Like when we started this show many moons ago as the first Buckeye podcast, it was literally supposed to be a 5-minute show. It was hence the name Bucknuts Morning 5. Some people are like, wait, I thought you called it Bucknuts Morning 5 because you did it 5 times a week. No, Mr. Bucknuts wanted us to keep it to 5 minutes, and then Dan Rubin and I kept risking getting fired by making it longer than 5 minutes, and eventually he acquiesced. But seriously, every comment we got, it was never like, you guys need to make this a little more concise. Every comment we got, in addition to we like the show, was, can you guys make it a little longer? We never once got a comment that, the show's a little too long. Everybody was like, can you make it a little longer? So we've made it a lot longer. We usually go over a half hour. And it's funny when we go 27 minutes and I say it's a short show. But comparatively speaking to when we launched, really, I mean, we had Front Row Radio before that. Really, we launched Bucknuts Radio like in the aughts. It was a podcast. We just didn't know what podcasts were. And then it was 2012, 2013, we launched this particular podcast, the Bucknuts Morning 5. So appreciate you guys making this a part of your routine. Love you guys, and really appreciate you guys. You guys have a ton of options out there. And I know this, and I'm glad you guys make the Bucknuts Morning 5 a part of your routine. I appreciate that very much. Thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Go Bucks. Still basking.